financial survival network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
$14.90 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. The person who you're going to hear from now will help you answer the questions of what do you do with your investments? How do you protect your family? What do you need to be thinking about to get through these economic hard times? He's been doing this for over 30 years. He's a master at it. Howard Ruff. Howard, how are you?
Well, I feel more like I do now than I did then.
Yeah, I think I do too. So you've been writing the Ruff Times for, is it 3 decades now or more than that?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, I thought it was 30 years, and I read it when I was in my 20s, and it really did have an impact on me because you really dealt with Austrian economics and unsustainability of fake money systems. We looked like we got through it okay in the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s. But now, fast forward to 2012, the system looks to be imploding all around us, doesn't it?
Well, things don't look good, but it's not the only time in our history that's been the case. There have been times when it's looked really bad. Like you commented on the 70s, it looked like we were going to get really out of control with serious inflation and so forth. But we were fortunate in electing Ronald Reagan, and Paul Volcker was chairman of the Federal Reserve at the time, and they decided to clamp down on inflation, and they did what's necessary. They drove interest rates up to as high as 21%, something that would be politically impossible today, but it did. It stopped inflation dead in its tracks. In fact, Ronald Reagan was my good friend, and I helped raise money for him and shared the platform with him on a lot of occasions. But it was bad for my business. It was good for my business when I first started out because I could view with alarm at Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy Carter was my foil, and Ronald Reagan was my savior. But my initial message of being down on Jimmy Carter and being down on the inflation ahead was very attractive and attention-getting. And when Ronald Reagan started turning around, I even changed the name of my newsletter from the Ruff Times to a Financial Success Report. And I think that was necessary, but it was bad in a way because my message wasn't as exciting and interesting as it used to be. So I went through some years of difficulty. I also was stricken with cancer at the time, and
didn't know that.
And it kind of took the starch out of me.
Right.
So, but now I'm back. I'm trying to go out in the blaze of glory here.
Yeah, well, even a stop clock is right twice a day, as they say. But you've been pretty spot on because I remember, when you did change the name of the publication and things really were looking up quite a bit during the Reagan tenure. And unfortunately, and I said we weren't going to talk about politics, but I guess it's inescapable. We don't see a Ronald Reagan, do we?
No, not so far. I wish we did. We don't at the moment, not so far. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to wait and see because I think the candidates, we're going to be surprised at who ends up as a candidate because the last candidates came out of nowhere. A year before the last presidential election, the 3 top candidates were Giuliani, Huckabee, and Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
None of them ended up as a candidate.
Yeah, and there's no enthusiasm for anybody currently. That I think is really quite obvious. That there's nobody there who's even willing to even think about what the true underlying problem is, that concept of unsound money, unsound fiscal policies, unsustainable. they're all just really into kicking the can down the road. So we can only hope that that a white knight emerges to do what Reagan did, and did so well so many years ago. It seems like such a long time ago when Reagan came on the scene, doesn't it?
It sure does. I miss him. He was a good friend of mine, and I've got an autographed picture, a big one, hanging in my office that I look to for inspiration.
Yeah, he was special, and he was an educator in a lot of ways, right? I mean, he was always saying government's not the solution, government is the problem. And now we've lost that message. No matter what happens, whether it's my wife was once complaining about the adapter on her cell phone to plug in, the charger, that it wasn't standardized. And every time she bought a new cell phone, she had to buy a new car adapter, and she wanted a law passed forcing all the cell phone manufacturers to standardize the plugs into their cell phones. And I said, okay, so do you think they should be fined if they don't do that? Yeah. I said, how about putting them in jail if they don't standardize that? Well, I don't know. Well, I said, well, once you allow the government to stick their nose in, it's just a matter of time until they start jailing manufacturers because they're not doing the right plug that the government thinks is the correct fit for cell phones. And that's the attitude now. Everybody's looking to the government for everything, and we need a complete revamping of political philosophy in this country, because that's not what made the country great.
Well, that's very good. I hope you straighten out your wife.
I got her a new, I told her if you would just get an iPhone, they've used the same cable from the first iPhone they came out with to now, but she got the message.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
She sounds like a good woman.
Yeah, really good person, and I'm really blessed to be with her. But it's really a struggle to help people, to help dampen their expectations of what the government can really do for them. And even if the government can do something good for you, is it something that they really should be doing? And nobody thinks about that. And I find that the debate, we're not debating what should be debated. We're literally just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, and it just bothers me, the lack of clear intellectual debate.
Well, I think I would agree with that. For example, everybody talks about what Congress needs to do. I think what the people need to do is the real problem. For example, you're opposed to socialism, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so am I.
Mm-hmm.
But I've bought into some socialist programs,
mm-hmm.
and I'm dependent on them, like Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Medicare, it could become a conservative cause if she found that the Democrats were going to try to hurt Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
But then Medicare is a pure socialist program.
Right.
Now, I remember I had a 5-way bypass open heart surgery, and it would have cost me $125,000, but I only paid $5,000 because Medicare took care of the rest. So I feel guilty about it. I really shouldn't have accepted that money, but I wasn't rich enough not to at that time, and consequently, I'm worried that Obama has a good chance of winning the election because he's Robin Hood. He's going to steal from the rich and give to the poor. Mm-hmm. Who's going to vote against Robin Hood?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't too much on the show get into the political scene because it just I'm kind of a libertarian, and I'm not happy with any of our choices for anything. I don't think anyone is the right person. But the thing is, if we go back to your Medicare analysis, that basically, the government turns you into a hypocrite because you want to live and you need the surgery, but you can't afford it, so you have to take it. But if we go back and we examine why medicine is so expensive, why the costs are so high, we see that the same people who are claiming to want to solve the problem, the government, are the ones that cause this. It's the same thing with college. Why is a college education so expensive? Because the liquidity, the ability to finance it, is so vast that people can just borrow the money and not think about paying it back, because they assume we'll get a good job and you'll be able to pay it off with your earnings. And yet, this is what makes these industries so costly. Education, cheap credit. Cheap credit really causes everything to inflate and the price of everything to go up and become unaffordable. So on the one hand, I know you take it, you don't feel good about it. On the other hand, the reason you have to take it is because the government got involved in this thing in the first place, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the dilemma that I faced at the time. And it's the one thing that worries me about it. I wish I'd been rich enough to turn it down and pay for it all myself, whatever the cost was. But I couldn't. So I did what I had to do. And I feel hypocritical about it. I think the word hypocritical is exactly the right word here. I feel hypocritical about it. So when, in the elections, the people who promise you that they're going to get you the benefits from the government that you can't afford to do without are going to be very attractive to the average person who doesn't thought through these things that you've talked about. They just haven't thought through it, and they don't care.
Yeah, that's what I find disturbing. I think so many people, they're not intellectually curious about it. It's like the child who comes in Christmas Day, and Santa Claus has stuffed the stockings and the boxes are under the tree, and they don't think any further that, hey, maybe there really isn't a Santa Claus. Maybe mom and dad did this, and maybe it cost them money, and they couldn't afford it. And we never get to that analysis, and that is, to me, like one of the biggest problems is we're not engaging in the right debate. So I'm not an anarchist. I'm against the concept. I don't believe that man can exist without government, but I love the argument that the anarchists make, because then it really calls into question is what are the proper functions of government? What should they be doing? And that's the debate that we need to have in this country, as opposed to just assuming any problem that's presented, it's a governmental issue, and the government has to impose a solution that, of course, will result in winners being picked, losers being picked, and everybody is poorer as a result. And it's really a conundrum. I'm hopeful, because I don't think we can afford to keep doing things business as usual. I mean, can we keep these things going? Can we keep kicking the can down the road, Howard?
Well, lots of luck. I think right now I believe that most of the people in this country have not thought these things through, and so the problem is Congress isn't going to be able to cut spending. I think they get elected on the premise that they will cut spending. When they get there, they realize if they cut spending, they're going to be cutting the income of their constituents.
Uh-huh.
It only takes them about 2 years, and they're back right where the rest of them are. For example, I don't expect them to cut much spending. I don't expect them to save much money, regardless of their protestations, regardless of their original intentions, because I think they found out the reality. If they want to be reelected, they had better make sure that people still get their benefits. Like, for example, where are you going to find a conservative that wants to get rid of Medicare or Social Security? These are pure socialist programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really tough. And I remember reading in the Ruff Times after the Democrats swept the House in 2010, you said they're not going to cut spending and they're going to be indistinguishable from the Democrats. And you called it, you hit the nail right on the head. And I agreed with you, because until there's a disaster, until there's a collapse, nothing is going to change, because the status quo suits everybody's needs. It gives the Republicans something to run against. It gives the Democrats something to support. And it gives the people a false sense of security that things are really okay and they'll continue on the way they are. And until something stops all that from happening, there's really not much that we can do about it, is there?
No, not much we can do about it. So my constituency is not government. I can't tell government what to do. I didn't even bother to try because they wouldn't listen to me anyway. But my constituency is the individual. What should you do with your life to live correct principles in your life and to avoid these problems? So I'm trying to teach my subscribers to plan their life so they're not dependent on government and don't need all the benefits that government wants to give them. Because that's in effect the way they seduce you into electing them and to staying with the old constituencies. But my constituency is to teach my people to become mavericks. In other words, there's so many things that I know are going to be in the future. For example, very, very serious inflation. Inflation is a monetary phenomenon. It's not rising prices. It's kind of like calling this wet sidewalks hurricane.
Yeah, wet sidewalks cause rain, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so what I want to do is teach people to plan their lives so that they can be independent of government. And I'm totally independent of all the benefits the government wants to give them, because the country is not built that way. The country will not grow that way. The country will not save itself that way, and it'll be a terrible disaster eventually.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what I always liked about your publications is they concentrate on the individual and what you can do to take control of your life and to be a sovereign person and to be ready when everything really does hit the fan, which is kind of inevitable. So, Howard, hey, it's been great having you on here. You really are one of my idols. You helped send me down the Austrian economic path many, many years ago. And your publications, where do we find you on the internet?
Well, you'd look at h.ruff at rufftimes.com.
Great. So, hey, we'll definitely have you on again. Good health. Thanks so much for being here, and be well.
Thank you very much.